to accept the invitation to be recorded the event. And well, I give the floor to you, Xavi, and to make your presentation. And thank you again for being here with us.
Thank you, Jose. Boa tarde, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for your invitation. I'm not sure if I'm not able to share my presentation right now.
No. I've already accepted it. It's
okay.
already.
So, okay, perfect. Let's try. It's a really short presentation, and I will try to be very synthetic. My idea basically is just to share with you, I would say, one message, two ideas, and two strategical approaches regarding our work in the city of Barcelona. The first message, I think Federico started to say something like that. Practical action I will prefer better than urbanism. It's not the same like urban planning. In my opinion, tactical intervention should be considered as a tool to reach some goals, some strategical goals that must be planned.
Parou? Eita, agora voltou.
There is some open.
Mas está instável.
Okay, it's okay.
Sorry.
Lucy, can you turn off your microphone, please?
Yeah, I was saying tactical should be considered as a tool, while urban planning should be considered as a discipline. You better know where the strategical approaches must be defined, where the goals must be established in one sense. The first idea, and let me to recover this picture from Jaime Lerner. When we are talking about tactical interventions, public space, we should take into account that we cannot separate what is happening in public space, what is happening in the private realm, inside the buildings. We must take into account the urban reality as an urban fabric reality, and it should be always interesting not separate what is happening on the street, on the square, on public space, and we should also focus on what is happening within the buildings, the different uses. I will talk about the same topic later. And the second idea is that we are facing, in fact, a cultural change in our cities. So it's very important to consider which is the difficulty to invite people to change their behaviors, to change the way that they have been living all their lives in our cities. Of course, all tactical interventions just trying to conquer the asphalt is probably one of the most effective things that we can do. And of course, all the tactical interventions, even they are small, are really, really, really useful. But I think it should be interesting also to consider that tactical actions should be within a strategical framework coming from the urban planning, just to help it to reach the different goals. So from our work in Barcelona, I wanted to share just two different programs, but I don't want just to share the project itself. I would like just to share with you the strategical and the concept approach of this project. The first one you probably know, because there are many cities like Milano also who are working in how to improve public space in the surrounding areas of our schools. In Barcelona, it's called Protegiendo las Escolas, in Catalan, Let's Protect Schools. I think it's interesting because it offers us a kind of acupuncture strategy. So the schools probably are the best distributed facility in our cities. This is the map of the schools in Barcelona. There are more or less 600 schools all around the city. And you can see it's like hotspots well distributed around the city. So the idea is how can we use tactical interventions to improve from a small size in front of every school, but if we take the enough perspective to understand that we are basically improving all the city, if we are able to improve the small things. So we have set up different tactical interventions in front of more than 200 schools a year, just transforming the streets, transforming that kind of corners into a new places, to a new square, we could say, in front of the doors of the schools, introducing new activities and new possibilities also for the schools and for the neighbors living there. And this is a very important map because improving these small areas, we are also changing from a larger scale. We are just reducing car lanes, we are introducing bus lanes, we are introducing bike lanes. We are also reducing the speed limit in front of the school, but also in the streets in a larger scale. So the idea is that coming from the small scale, we are able to introduce larger changes, could say even a systemical changes. And of course, about Superblock, you know, from the first tactical interventions in the first pilot experience, from the 2016 and 2018, the idea that thanks to this tactical intervention, we were able to scale up the project and to understand, after have learned some very important lessons from the first tactical experience, how to improve participatory process, how to improve design, how to improve strategical level. We were able to scale up the project and to understand that we have the potential to introduce a new environmental and social infrastructure, not only in the central area of the city, the Eixample, but also in the whole city of Barcelona. And beyond this public space transformation, we are also changing our urban planning, almost our mobility model all around the city. So coming from the tactical interventions, scaling up to a broader scale, we are also transforming the different strategical plannings that we already have in the city of Barcelona. And we are also introducing new regulations, for instance, in land use of the Eixample, just to preventing the transformation of the uses in the ground floors of the city. You know, we have a really heavy pressure for the tourist activities in the city. So the idea is how to limit the concentration of that activities that can attract the tourism in our city. And there are some pictures of the transformation from tactical to structural, of course. In the streets could say the same. This is a picture from, I guess, a few days ago of these corners that started as a tactical one. And right now are the new the spaces just absolutely transformed into new spaces. So final conclusion, tactical is a really good tool, not to change urban planning, but to help urban planning in order to reach strategical goals. That's all. Thank you. Just to start.
Thank you, Javier, for giving us and highlight us the great work that Barcelona has been done from the last years. I think we should also come back to this discussion of what do you mean by tactical. One of the comments that Manfred has sent us is if we shouldn't begin to call it more ephemeral or temporary actions, because the idea of the tactical can eventually give us a different perception of what these types of actions are. But this, we will discuss this later. So I will ask Demetriu. Demetriu, can you highlight us also the work that you have been doing in Milan that I've had the opportunity to visit in the last month?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Hope you can see my screen and you can see my slides moving. I'm actually not able to put them widescreen, so give me a sec. Doesn't matter. So I'll take it from very far, but it's just an introduction. I think we have to. We live in an era where we have planning is not reversible anymore. We live in an era where cities are the issues and the solutions to most of our environmental and social issues. And basically all cities have visions. Just for a better city where public space is at the core of a changing paradigms, related to shifting from an old model to a new model, from consume to reuse, from great to green, from neighborhoods, and of course from...
Tá falhando. O meu tá falhando, tudo cortando.
Por favor, eu depois faço essa gestão. Por favor, não liguem as câmeras, o microfone, por favor. Demetriu, it's better to close the video because the internet is not so good. And we are not able to listen to you so well.
You want me to restart, or you got what I said?
No, we got what you said, but eventually, if you could turn off the video, I think we will listen better.
All our of course,
Yeah, it's not. It's Demetri. It's not improving. It's not. Let's try to see. Eventually, if you could, can you say something about so you can? Because
I can hear you perfectly. So
yeah, the internet is.
I'm sorry, you cannot.
Okay, it's not. Sometimes we have this problem of the internet. So, Demetri, can you?
From another device, or maybe improve. Try.
If you could try to find another, eventually, if a place with a better internet, I don't know if it is possible. Okay. Let's see if we can manage to get the internet better. Just a moment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I think so.
Yes, yeah. Yes. And Demetri, if you can maximize your image, it's in Vista on the top. If you go to Vista, it will be easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So if as I was saying, public spaces at the core of our strategies, and the pandemic showed us how space use can change dramatically, and now the status quo that we're living is actually not normal anymore. And the urgency of the change that we need to apply to our cities, basically, just shifting from a long-term vision to a short-term one. And to make ours are a matter of
Demetrio, yeah. If you want to send us the
just don't know what to do because actually it's
apologies.
Working up to.
Yeah. Eventually, can you send the email by email the presentation, and I will share it here. Eventually, it would be better because with the video and the presentation, it's not. Or you can send them by WhatsApp, and I can open it here. Eventually, we can get it better.
It's not so easy.
Let's just wait. This is part of the online events. We need the unexpected. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Let me try because actually sending is probably not so easy because of the same issue connected. So
okay.
I had to find an open office in the city of Milan, which is not that easy at 7:30.
Okay, let's try. Let's try again.
The main question that our city is to ask themselves is a matter of. It's not a matter of how to make it possible and quick in a way that can be effective in a very short period of time. So basically, we started from the business as usual public works, where basically, in order to change a public space, you need millions, years, in order to produce an irreversible project, which makes a lot of frustration in everyone who is part of the process. And the result maybe is old, in the moment where you finally opening. Today, that actually never more, but to change public space that can be done by spending thousands of euros, months of time, and not years, and in a way that projects can be transformed reversible. And reversibility is a huge tool in order to be more radical. The tools are the easiest that you can imagine: street marks, traffic paint, public art, bollards and curbs in order to protect the public space, street furniture to make it alive, activators, and participation, engagement of citizens in the making of the process, and collaboration. This made us possible to launch a program where basically we learn how to do it by doing. We started with a top-down approach, pedestrianizing a public space in a neighborhood north of Milan, transforming it from a car park to a place where people can live the public space. They can enjoy the everyday life of public space. The project has been transformed from temporary to permanent through a process of creating consensus around the place by living it. And then, second step, we started working in front of schools. We started working in order to change the perspective from a traffic-oriented approach to a people-oriented approach. Again, a change of perspective that made us possible to understand that the life of our children in the street is more important than the traffic flow and the way we consider it typically in the business as usual. After we started with pilots, we delivered from the top down. We started working on a bottom-up process, asking citizens and implementing projects on demand of what the citizens were proposing us. Different kind of projects: new plazas or pedestrian areas, underused public space activation, curb extensions and traffic safety measures, bike connections. Projects like these, where basically we apply the change of perspectives in the design and use of public space in order to transform places in front of schools, particularly, from traffic paradise, where a car can do any kind of maneuver, any kind of behavior, to playgrounds, to places where children and caregivers can enjoy and make the place a vibrant one. We collected all the experience of the first 4 years in the report, and we relaunched the program with a new administration, same mayor, but a new administration, with an open call for targeting spaces in front of schools, school streets. We got 87 proposals, 200 schools involved, thousands of stakeholders interested, asking for changing our streets and our places in the next years. And tactical urbanism was not just public space, but also a matter of changing mobility during the pandemic through the realization of bike lanes and street trees. So to conclude, and sorry again for the bad starting and for the connection, I think what we learned is that from pilot to a program, changing the street is easier than what we think. It's not a matter of money. It's not a matter of process. It's a matter of will. Maybe what you need and would be helpful to have in a city is a proper design team that conceive public space in a way that is completely different from the way it was conceived before. And this is, of course, something that we are learning. At the same time, we learn that changing public space could be possible through collaboration. Collaboration at different levels, but particularly collaboration with those citizens that are asking for change. And we learned that empowering them brings care in the everyday life of the public space that we're changing. And then what we learned, and it's the last lesson learned, is that schools are the easiest wins ever. And if any cities should start tomorrow with a tactical urbanism program or a reclaiming public space program, they should start from schools, because future generations are the ones that will change our cities and are catalysts for change. So what we are doing is a changing of perspective from long-term vision to short-term one, because we feel urgent need of changing public spaces. And the most of the public spaces that our cities has are streets. If you conceive streets for people, not for cars, you can build communities around them. And particularly, you can bring communities starting from those communities that are asking for change, that are striving for change, and not from the ones that are resistant to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Demetrio. And it's always, don't worry about the internet problems. We know that sometimes they appear where we don't want them, but nevertheless, it was great, a great presentation. And it's, and I had the opportunity to visit Milan and to understand how this top-down and bottom-up approach they are combining somehow, and they are producing this very interesting transformation from the places that are considered the crucial ones. Which are the places where children play or children use, and it's really something that we should try to understand and to use it in our country. So Federico, for the first question, I will ask all the participants. I think that you have seen in the chat there is a document, shared document where you can write the questions, so we can have them in the end to use them and to organize a document, but nevertheless to organize the questions. So if you want, in the chat you have here the place where you can ask and write some of the questions or comments to this debate. But Federico, eventually we should begin by one of the questions that raises the opportunity of this debate. It was the impact, how this tactical urbanism can transform the way we change and we build cities, and especially how we can make planning and plans in a different way. Federico, do you want to launch the first question?
Yeah, okay. So basically, the story that Barcelona and Milan are telling us is quite inspiring, actually, because somehow they show us that the streets had lost in the last years, are lost our main role, our main function, which we were all 100% focused on mobility. And maybe what these experiences that you are showing to us come to prove is that the main function of the street is, again, the street as an engine of social interaction. And I would like to ask you if what balance do you make according to your experiences? What balances do you make as the tactical urbanism, as a tool to recover the streets as an engine of social interaction?
Okay, thank you. Excellent question. Do you want to, Xavier, do you want to begin?
Yeah, may I start? Yeah, I would say that basically the conclusion after those years is that I think is the main importance thing, because for many years ago, as Demetrio said, the car was the center of all in public.
Xavi, we are also having some problems with the video.
I don't have, yeah. Can you hear me right now?
Okay, now it's okay.
A little better, yeah.
Okay. So, no, I was saying that files, so it's very important just to take one plan. No?
Now, eventually, Javi, if you can close the video, eventually it would be better to hear you.
Okay. So I will
Yes.
continue without
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
Better.
A little, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, the final conclusion after those years has been that public space is again on the center of the public discussion in the city, and not only from academical approach, also in a social way. Everyone is discussing and thinking about what is happening in their neighborhoods, in their streets, and I think this is the most important. I will also say that I think it's a very good thing because Milano and Barcelona both have in common that are cities that they are not just looking for a flagship tactical intervention in order to do a kind of publicity strategy. They are both working in a broader scale, trying to change in a systemical scale. And I think everyone can understand that we are not looking for just a small action, an easy action. I would say most cities are looking for a change of their urban model, basically in public space. So I think it's important just to defend that approach, a systemical approach, because as I said at the beginning, tactical is not a goal itself. It's just a tool to reach broader changes, broader improvements in our urban model.
Okay, thank you, Xavi. Demetrio.
Well, I'll try to respond with a very simple example. One of the easiest things that we did with the tactical urbanism program here in Milan, with the Piazza Aperte program, was putting benches. We live in cities, and particularly I live in a city where for decades we didn't put benches anywhere, for maintenance reasons, for social reasons, for cultural reasons. And we were overwhelmed by looking to all the places where we put street furniture and how the absence of cars and the street furniture could generate incredible outcome in terms of social interactions. Really, I mean, if you change the use of the street, putting benches on it, completely change the way that space is going to be lived. And of course, we are working on systemic change, and of course, we're working in order to expand as much as possible the capability that our cities has to transform quickly. But still, we are working on a not great percentage of streets in the city, because the amount of places that we dedicated to cars and to traffic in the last decade is so big that transforming them in a massive way would be a huge work. So what we're working on is more the change of perspective about what kind of infrastructure is key in the neighborhoods particularly. Is it key to have a double-way lane with car parks on the side, front for school, or maybe it's better to have other kind of infrastructures, social infrastructures, environmental infrastructures, where we can apply change in our cities, if not in our most relevant amount of public space that we have. I mean, these are questions that we are trying to answer and reply every day. But what I want to stress is the importance of the change of perspective that we are applying with these programs. And Xavi and Superblocks did it in a global perspective by being the flagship projects for all cities that wanted to deliver something similar, because of their strategic approach, in order of demonstrating how the Superblock could be a different approach to neighborhood life and to mobility in a whole city. And yeah, the change of perspective is something that really we stress, I think, and it's also the key thing in the moment that we are, transition moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Demetrio. So, but one of the questions that that a lot of people is raising here is about, we are trying to accelerate the transformation of cities, in most of the cases, we are trying to take space from the car and to make it livable, to make it to be used by, well, by citizens, by especially the ones who lost the right to use the city. We're talking about the children, we're talking about the older people. But in most of the cases, the discussion about how collaborative and how well this transformation is being explained to citizens, because you know there are a lot of complaints about these kinds of transformations. You know, in your cities, for sure, and in Barcelona, we've recently heard about it during the elections. So the super blocks, they are nevertheless a relevant transformation for the city, but they are changing the status quo. So in somehow the speed of the transformation can be crucial, and the way you involve citizens and you explain why do you need to make this transformation. So Xavier, and beginning by you, so how collaborative is this tactical, or can be this tactical urbanism methods or tools, as you have called it? In what way citizens are really involved in the decisions, in the experimentation, and especially in the valuing and supporting the replication of these more punctual and fragmented actions in something more structural. So what is your opinion about this question?
Yes, I would say it's depending on the type of the action, basically. For instance, in the program of the schools, it has been too easy, but it has been easier than other kind of actions to get involved with the school community. The design of the space, of course, that it's really easy, but also strategical approach. I think the most important thing is just to identify which are the different levels that you need to define in order to get involved people. For instance, in Super, we had different groups, promotional groups, from the strategical level one, where we were able to explain everyone. It was an open space to explain which were the strategic approach to the project, till these small other groups where we invited the neighbors of a specific territory in order to discuss the details, we would say, in order to discuss the specific public space design of these streets, of these areas. So I think it's important just to balance the different spaces, open to the whole city, just open all different neighbors. Everyone can can be interested in different decision levels. Because we have realized also that people usually don't want to decide everything. They want to know, they want to have all the information. So it's really important to be absolutely transparent. As one of you already know, because there were a question about the platform, the city, you know, we have an open source digital platform. City Council can manage all the participatory processes. It's a tool that's been really useful. And there is a curious thing, because from the first project in Poplano in 2016, where there was a lot of complaining people against the project, we have shifted to a new situation where the last participatory batches, 3 new areas asked for a new purple project in the city. So we've been able to change the feeling of people just from a situation where probably it was not enough explained to everyone, to a new situation on people use this different participatory platform to ask even more actions in order to improve the neighborhood. So I would say just to identify different levels with different groups profiles in order to identify which is the best information on every level, and to amplify the different tools that we can offer to people.
But regarding Barcelona, most of these are, I imagine that these tactical urbanism, they was mainly promoted by the municipality. They were top down. Have you also had the collaboration from civic groups, more bottom-up initiatives? And have you had the opportunity to dialogue with these kinds of, or it was mainly a top-down coordinated by the municipality?
Yeah, the bottom-up vector has been basically useful to identify new projects. I think more or less like in Milan also, platform the different participatory processes has allowed us to identify new opportunities to transform. So from this moment that we identify that there are a proposal coming from people in a different neighborhood or streets, is where we start the participatory method that we use on every project. But it's basically always managed by the city council in order to apply technical decisions coming from the network system or on the city to identify the possibilities on every space.
Okay, thank you, Xavi. Demetri, what about in Milan case?
Well, in our case, we started with a top-down approach because we wanted to understand if we were able to deliver tactical urbanism program projects, pilot projects, because most of the effort the first year of the project in 2018 was just to understand if we were able. So convincing people in the mobility department if that was possible to pedestrianize the space without investing money, without realizing a curb, without any provision of budget, by putting planters, putting benches on the same level of the street. So the procurement, what kind of kit. So we had to learn many things, and we couldn't start as a bottom-up without having the knowledge if we were able to deliver. And by starting top-down, we made a lot of mistakes at the same time, particularly in the relationship with the communities. The first public meeting that we did was a failure, was a huge failure.
But why? Why was a failure? What happened?
It was too late. We approached to community engagement in a naive way. Most of the decision was already made. And we were somehow enthusiastic, and we thought that people were received in new plazas in the neighborhood that had no. But reality that those 25 car parks were so important in the narrative of the people who were reacting. And we learned through time that this is part of the process. Two things are part of the process. The first thing is every time the cities propose something in a top-down way, basically found a lot of resistances. Found resistances from the ones that are disagreeing with the political approach, from the one that disagrees with the technical approach, and even from the people supportive, in theory, they would say, well, I would have done it differently. By time, we learned that then resistance is reaction. It's mostly a reaction, and it's probably not lasting for so long. Resisting is a huge work. But at the same time, when we shift from the top-down to the bottom-up approach by asking not just to highlight what kind of places and where people would have loved to have a tactical urbanism project, but also to collaborate with us in order to do it, we changed completely our work, made it much easier, because there's nothing easier than having someone pushing on your back in order to do the change that you want to bring. Pushing makes you faster. Making them pushing makes easier to apply changes. Then maybe you can find some political resistance because of being worried, because of scared, because of whatever reason. So the collaboration with the citizens in our case was a game changer. And when I say collaboration, is a matter of asking for collaboration around the place. So basically not just highlighting the place, but also proposing themselves as a team able to collaborate with us. It could be a matter of painting the space. It could be a matter of co-design. It could be a matter of bringing activities after community events, after the implementation. But this collaboration and the signature of collaboration pacts, I think it's one of our tools that made the project successful. Because I think the program, as a top-down one, would have not lasted so long. Because at a certain point, maybe you find the wrong place, you pick the wrong place, the resistance overcomes you, and maybe you don't go ahead. While in this way, we put the political world in a position to respond to requests from citizens asking for change. And it changes also their perspective. They are used to be the one that made change possible and fight resistances from everyone. While in this case, it's so easy. They have to respond to people asking for change. There's nothing easier. So I think this is really something very, very important and something that this approach facilitates much.
Yeah. But Demetrio, there is the issue. I imagine that most of the cases you have tensions. That the way you want to change, there is no consensus. You know, there are always groups that are against. I imagine the car owners or shop owners also. So how do you? What kind of mediation do you use in this intervention that you have made in Milano? How do you manage to articulate the different interests? José Rio Fernandes was putting a question about the speed of transformation, because you know that we tend to accelerate, and recently because of the COVID, we understood that it was the time to speed up, and lots of cities made it that they rushed the transformation, but there is always a political cost or a social cost in the transformations that are made too fast. How do you manage to articulate these different interests?
Of course there is, but building alliances is key. So what I was mentioning before, the fact that we could have someone on our side became key in order to create consensus in the neighborhoods in a very capillary way. If you have a group of people, imagine an association of parents or a community related to the school that every day is fighting your battle, the same fight you're fighting in front of the school every day with their neighbors, makes a complete and makes a total change compared to the fact that the city, has to fight that thing. And there is no way you can do it. There is no way institutions can do it so capillarily, so talking in the everyday life with the neighbor. And there is something also different. When you have people asking for change and doing the change themselves, people that are complaining or that are resisting or they want to polarize the discourse, etc., they should refer to the project that their neighbors wanted and not to the project that the city wanted. And also in the matter of resisting to those changes, it's a completely different narrative. It's so easy to complain against institution. It's very hard to complain so hard to the people living in front of your door, of your window. So I think this generation of alliances was key. At the same time, of course, pandemic was an accelerator. But at the same time, I think the schools, in our case, were also somehow the right places from where to find the balance. Because maybe a plaza in the neighborhood can be discussed in order of the kind of views that you can have, maybe better to have more car parks, maybe less space in front of the shops or whatever. But when you see kids playing in a public space in front of the schools twice a day, I mean, what kind of discourse you can bring if you're against those things? What you can say, I want to park my car instead of having children playing. you can do it, but it won't last long. So I think there are tools and there are ways in order to make the process and the consensus process and the engagement process much easier than not having the city trying to make systemic change alone by explaining to citizens that is better, because that's very difficult to do, and it comes after a long period of transformations and change that has to be done with a more capillary, collaborative, and transformative approach. Then last secret and last tool is reversibility. If I start tomorrow a project saying that I want to pedestrianize this plaza in front of a school, and I discuss the project on paper, at the end, the different resistance will bring me to deliver a project that is probably a balance of the different voices. So yes, a new pedestrian public space, but maybe with some car park, maybe trees, yes, but also some more street that can enter the place, whatever. If you can make people experiencing the transformation, and lasting the first reaction that is, of course, generated by the ones that will say no as an immediate reaction, but let's then going ahead and say, okay, let's try it for 2 months. After 2 months, you make people experiences the change. So overcoming their fears, making them discussing in the public space about the future of public space. And there is nothing more beautiful about what public space can be than not being the place for discussing about what public space should be. And at the same time, reversibility is a tool to say, if it doesn't work, we will go back. And it's something that you cannot do with the permanent projects. Yeah. So this tool basically makes it possible to change your approach and to say, let's try. Then honestly, we never go back. We never went back. Maybe one day we will, but we never went back in 4 years. But the fact that we could do that made it much easier to convince people to overcome resistances and to be radical.
Thank you, Demetrio. Well, we are almost ending our 1 hour talk, so it's time to make and to ask you both recommendations for the future, especially for most of the audience here is from Portugal and Brazil, I imagine, I think. And we would like to listen from your experience. You have mentioned a lot of the potential of these tactical actions, and Demetrio were talking about how the low cost and the speed of the actions, how they reversible they can be. So they are quite an important tool, but at the same time they have limitations. We should understand the speed of transformation that you want to create, and also the lack of a more of a framework. Of one of the members of the participants asked if we shouldn't talk about more of placemaking, to have a more structural approach than these more fragmental and tactical and punctual actions that nevertheless they can have a wider perspective, like Xavier has explained. So you can have both the punctual and the structural transformation at the same time. But regarding the future and from the learnings that you have done, Xavier, what recommendations could you leave us to future discussions and also to public policies that we want to develop in our communities?
I read in the questions document that one of our colleagues wrote that there is the risk that probably tactical actions could be used as a cover to avoid more deeper transformations in our city. I think this is a really good point. So the recommendation in this sense would say we first, or before tactical actions, we should provide a long-term vision of our cities, introducing which are the real actions to transform our urban model, because we probably share, and we agree all around about what are the main issues right now in our cities. But I think it's really important to give a message that everyone could understand that we are not doing isolated actions. With tactical tool, we are just constructing a new future, a new vision of our cities, to understand that we are acting by local, but just approaching in a broader scale. And I would say, and I will add also that we need to identify which are the different levels of discussion about this process of transformation. Demetrio said before that we have in front of us a huge work to transform all the cities. I think it's more or less the huge work that we had when we started to pavement our streets many years ago. We need to transform all the streets in our cities. We will need time, of course, but we need real actions to provide a new change of the behaviors of our cities to people. I think it's very important to identify which are the different levels of discussion, because Barcelona, for instance, we point out that the people living in the places that were proposed to be transformed were people basically really enthusiastic with the idea, but we also discovered that there are another kind of powerful groups in our cities coming from the car lobby or another like this, complaining against and with different methods. So with the ordinary participatory process, we are not reaching agreements with that kind of power associations and economical and car associations in our city. We need different levels by political actions, by technical actions also, to reach that kind of alliance that also Demetrio asked before to reach. So it's not only just a neighborhood approach. We need to balance a strategical approach from different politics actions in different levels, and of course to be able to involve citizens living there in the place. I said before, schools is a really good tactic, because no one can complain. Demetrio also explained before about improving spaces, improving security in front of our schools. So it's also important to discover which are the tactics that can make possible this broader approach, this strategic project or around the city.
Well, Javi, in Portugal, the parents complain about that. Unfortunately, it's really hard to change even in front of schools. But you're right. It's a very important group.
We also found some families complaining about removing car spots in front of the schools. It's incredible. So we had to manage different discussions, really hard discussions between families, different families. One of them, pushing to get the transformation. Other ones to remain the parking spots. So this is the city. I think we also need to have enough technical teams in not only in the city councils, also probably from the private offices, in order to manage the conflict. I think it's impossible to think that we won't find any conflict in that kind of transformation. So we need to manage, and we need to understand that we'll need time enough to get a final transformation.
Thank you, Javier, for your comment. Demetrio, the final recommendations or suggestions to further discussion. It's not possible to discuss everything in 1 hour. I apologize. There are a lot of questions that we would love to bring to the table, but it's not possible. Nevertheless, we will in a near future we will organize a next event where we can pick them also. So, Demetrio, your final comments.
Well, no matter if you're a city leader or a city officer or an academic or a stakeholder or a citizen, my first suggestion is starting. Try to do something to change the way we approach our cities and our planning. We need long-term strategies and we need a vision, but a vision can come and priorities can come also from making it possible and by learning every day. So honestly, when we started in 2018, safety in front of schools was not a huge priority in the city. New public spaces maybe was becoming a topic, but with more focus in the city center more than in the other neighborhoods. Fast and quick implementations were not a deal. I mean, not something that we were thinking to. We were used to deliver €1 million project in 6 years, and because that was the approach, what we could do with our laws, what we could do with our technical capability. So we started with 2 pilots, and we made it a program, and we delivered 40 projects, and we've been asked to deliver more than 100 more in the next years. We will never be able to do that, but we've been able to change the priorities in the city by making it, by showing the results, by showing the experiences, by showing everyday pictures of people living the spaces in a way that is much more beautiful and positive of car parking. And it's not so difficult, to be honest, because there's no worse use of public space than car parking. So it's really, I'm stressing this very much, I'm sorry about that, but the change of perspective is definitely the main thing that we have to do. We have to change the narrative. We have to have our mayors talking about children and not cars. We have to have our leaders and the public, the community leaders and everyone discussing about being able to meeting people, to do yoga in the streets, to make sports in the streets, to play, to breathe a better air, maybe to use the car parking in a different way, planting trees. Because if we can do this systemic change in the approach of the citizens and in the mindset of the citizens, then everything will be easier, and all the changes that we're fighting so hard today, it would be obvious after doing this. When we started with a 25 car parking project, and we had to keep 5 because you have to deal with it. And in the last ones, we are taking out 40 or 50 without anyone in the political side even complaining about it or worried about it. It changes, and it will be more and more by continuing to show the results and continue to show how effective it can be. We designed a bike lane in the main corridor, and we brought 10,000 cyclists every day. How can you change that? I mean, it's really a matter of understanding that we are in a moment where we wasted too much time in the past. We are facing urgent needs. We are facing a climate crisis every day. Outside there is 38 degrees in Milan at 8 p.m. And we have to find quick solutions to make it better. So one of the main things is also how we make these spaces permanent without investing a huge amount of money. How we can apply change in a way that maybe is not that nice in terms of traditional public space design as we were used to conceive our public space in the city centers. Maybe less stone public space, maybe greener, maybe focusing on shadow instead of aesthetics, maybe spending more and more ideas into how to make people playing instead of whatever else. We have to change many things and many approaches, but the most important one is changing the mindset and changing the way and the perspective from where we look to how streets should be designed. And all the rest is somehow a consequence.
Yes, I agree completely, Demetrio. Well, thank you very much, Demetrio and Xavi, for this great presentation and discussion. Apologies for all the questions that were raised and we didn't have the time to answer. Nevertheless, we will look at them and we'll try to organize a small document with the main ideas. We will have recorded this session, so it will be available for the ones who couldn't come here today. And just let me say before ending this session that next week we'll have another talk about the power of civic imagination to transform politics and cities. We'll have also two great invited guests, Michel D'Alena from the Fondazione Innovazione Urbana of Bologna. He is was the director of a civic imagination office. So he has a great work in Bologna. As you know, Bologna is one of the case studies in Europe of promoting participation with several very interesting methodologies. And the other guest will be Raul Olivan from Aragon. He is the general director of open government and social innovation. He works in Zaragoza, and he was the leader of several civic and social initiatives, very, very relevant. So it will be a great talk also. I would like to thank you, Javi and Demetrio, for having and give us this 1 hour of your time, of your precious time. And thank you so much for your comments and your learnings and your all the suggestions that you have left us for the future. So thank you very much, Xavi and Demetrio, and thank you all for being here with us. Hope to have you in 1 week. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Muito obrigado.
Thank you. Obrigadíssima. Bye.
Um abraço. Obrigado também.
Obrigado.